Welcome to season 13 of the Parenting Aces Podcast, a proud member of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we are going to be discussing the importance of taking notes on matches, referring back to those notes, and really for junior players to learn how to adequately and effectively analyze their practices, their matches, so that they can learn and take those lessons into subsequent matches and tournaments and lessons and drills and all of the things. So we've got two guests with us this week. One is a very highly respected, highly accomplished tennis coach, JY Aubone, who y'all have heard from and seen on this podcast numerous times. The other is an avid rec tennis player who has developed an app to help junior players and adults effectively journal using just their iPhone or iPad or other device. And that is Mike Rogers. And I'm thrilled to bring both of these gentlemen to the podcast to have this conversation because JY has developed an actual hard copy paper journal that if y'all listened to my last podcast with him, we talked about a little bit, and it's now available on Amazon. Mike has developed an app that is called Match Recall, and it is a work in progress. He is continuing to tweak it. He and I have talked about its application for junior tennis, which was not something that initially was in his plans. As an adult rec player, he developed this app for his own use and for that of his, friends that are playing tennis at the rec level, whether they're just playing league or playing tournaments. But now he has expanded the app and is starting to really understand its implications and applications for junior tennis. So I'm super excited for both of these guys to talk about this topic of journaling, why it's important, how we can make it easier on your kids to make sure that they do it in a consistent manner so that they can really learn from every episode that they step foot on a court or in a gym or doing something, working on their mental game, whatever it is, keeping track of that and having a record of their junior tennis journey, which I think is super cool. So before I bring the guys on, quick reminder that we are going to Spain next summer and would love for you to join us. We are going to be going to Barcelona and to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca for kids to train, to learn, to experience tennis and life in another country. And parents, you are invited to come along as just accompaniers, or if you want to participate in the tennis, you are welcome to participate from the adult side. The juniors will be separate, but all the information on our upcoming trip, which is July 18 to 27 next summer, 2025, all that information is on our website, and I hope you will take a look and get signed up because the deadline is coming up the end of November. What's also coming up the end of November is our last episode of season 13. We'll be taking a little break over the Thanksgiving and winter holidays and coming back with crazy season 14 in January. I cannot believe that we are entering year 14 of Parenting Aces, but what that means to you is there are 13 plus years of content on parentingaces.com that include articles, that include podcasts, that include Q&As, videos, and I hope you are using that to your full advantage to help ease your journey through junior tennis, college recruiting, and beyond. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with JY and Mike. Mike Rogers, JY Aubone, welcome to the podcast. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on. It's your first time with us. So our audience already knows all about JY. And if audience members, if you don't know about JY, go on our website, go through our podcast archives. We've got lots and lots and lots of conversations together. But Mike, wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience, let them know a little bit about your tennis story.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and it's great to be here. And my tennis story did start at an early age. I started playing tennis when I was about 7, 8 years old, and my first coach was actually Pancho Segura, who was the pro at the club that I belonged to with my parents. And I played a lot of tennis, for a couple of years, and then got into Little League, and so kind of left tennis and didn't really start playing again until I was about 30 years old, and was actually playing a lot of golf. And then my wife got pregnant and said, no more golf. So we had courts here where I live, and we have team tennis and other things going on. So I started playing tennis because I could do that at night, and then played leagues for the last 20 years. And about 5 years ago, saw a movie called Gold Balls, which was about super senior tennis guys that are in their 80s that are still competing for gold balls. And I said, wow, that's something I can do. So started playing singles, which I hadn't played for 20 years either. And started competing in tournaments. Last year, I did 26 tournaments. And while competing in all these tournaments, I was noticing one thing that, working with coaches, they always said, keep track of what you're doing when you're done with the match, record what you did well, record what you could improve, any kind of notes you could take on the players. And so I started doing that in an Excel spreadsheet, and said, well, there's got to be an app for something like that, and was looking all around and couldn't find anything that really suited what I was looking for. And so decided to develop Match Recall. And that's why we're here on the podcast today.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And it's never too late to get involved in competitive tennis. That's the beauty of our sport, right? Excuse me,
And,
you guys.
and
My
trying to
voice is being
live
wonky.
that 10 years longer that they're promoting right now. So at my age,
Exactly.
I'm ready to do that.
I love it. I love it. JY, why is taking notes on matches an important piece of the developmental puzzle, whether it's a junior player or an adult player like Mike who is aiming for those gold balls? What is the value in journaling or, analyzing matches yourself as a player?
Well, I think first, just taking notes. I think we can all relate in general, whether it was school or just having conversations with somebody. How many times did you say, like, okay, yeah, I'll call you, or I'll do this, or I'll do that? And like even 20 minutes later, you're like, I was supposed to do something, wasn't I? Right. And it is, we just forget. In the moment, it might seem so obvious, but it's amazing how quickly we can forget it because we just move on and other things come into our mind. So, first, just for the ability to remember stuff, writing it down in any type of form. One, that act alone is going to help you remember it better. And then two, and if you don't remember it, you can go back and actually just read it. So now you're winning on all sides, right? Whether you do remember or you forget, you got everything covered. And the more information we get, the more we can piece patterns together, right? Once you piece your patterns together, that's when you can then come up with an actionable plan as to, well, how do I improve on the things I want to work on? But if you're not quite sure, or you're like, well, this time it was this, or this time I was that, again, maybe you have a pretty good idea, but at this point in time, wouldn't we rather just be 100% sure of what we need to work on, right? Rather than trying things and then realizing, nope, that wasn't it. Let's just get right to it right away. So that's the biggest part of it.
I love it. And I mentioned in the intro to the podcast this week that JY, you have a new hard copy journal available, and it's available on Amazon, and we have a link on our website, and hope people will take a look at that. But also, as Mike mentioned, he has developed an app called Match Recall. And so at this present moment, all of you watching this, you have two options here. You can have a paper journal, you can have an electronic journal, and so there's really no excuse not to be taking notes on these matches and using that information. Mike, from the player perspective, can you elaborate? Because you mentioned this already a little bit, but can you elaborate on how you have used your journals, your Excel spreadsheets before Match Recall existed, to help you when you're going into a practice session or into a match? And then JY, I want to talk to you about, from the coach's perspective, how this is so useful.
Sure. Well, that's the one flaw that I found with the Excel spreadsheets was I had to use them when I was at home sitting at my, computer. And I wanted something, when you're playing a tournament or you're playing a league match, sometimes you don't find out who you're playing until a few minutes before. And I want to be able to look up information on that player and notes that I've taken on that player. So I wanted that handy. And the only way to do that was with an app. And that's helped me when I can look and see, oh, I played this guy 6 months ago. And when you're playing a lot of tournaments or a lot of leagues, it just starts becoming a jumble in there. You think, oh, I played this guy, or maybe it was this guy. And so this way you have that information readily available that you can pull up. You could look at a past match and just see, oh, okay, this is what happened. He won or I won, and these are the things that I did well to help me, or these are the things I need to do next time I play this guy. And so that's why having that electronic or digital journal for me was what I was looking for to help me, right there in the moment, so to speak.
And so what kind of things besides, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, are there some details that you can share that you like to record on your matches?
One thing that I think is important is things that I did well. It's so easy when I play a match and maybe I lost that match to sit there and relive everything that I did wrong. And that's not building the right habit in my mind of what I want to do. I want to kind of build some confidence. So it's a little bit easier right after the match to say, okay, well, maybe I wasn't serving well, or maybe I wasn't doing this, but boy, I was hitting my forehand, or man, I was hitting my patterns well. I hit 2 to his backhand, 1 to his forehand, like I was looking to do when I came into the match. So I think, giving yourself credit for the things you do well when you're journaling is really important, because
Love
that's going to
that.
build that confidence. And I'm sure JY can attest to that.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny that you said that, because just a couple of days ago, I was talking on the phone with somebody about a player, and I said, talking to a player about a match, and I said, hey, so just tell me overall, like we just reviewed the match, what do you remember about it? We just finished like a 45-minute review of the match. So I said, what are the points that really stick out from our conversation? And all they gave was everything that went wrong, everything that they did wrong. And I didn't say, tell me everything you did wrong. I said, tell me what you took from our conversation. I named 6 things that you did well, 3 of them big improvements that we've been working on for 3-4 months. That doesn't stick out in your mind, right? So all you're doing is just putting yourself down and putting your confidence down, making it, first of all, you won this match, but you're going to leave this conversation thinking and feeling like, even though you won, it wasn't a great match, right? There are a lot of things that we do need to remember, that, hey, we are doing some things well, and confidence is a big issue, not just in sports, but in everything we do. But if you only remember the bad stuff, it's kind of hard to feel good about anything you're doing, and that's going to affect your performance at some point.
JY, can you talk about, from the coaching perspective, when you have a player who is keeping notes, whether it's in a hard copy journal or in an app or some other way, how do you use that information to help the player improve?
Gosh, okay, because there's so many ways that I'm looking for things, so many things that. So I like to see what they're writing without me telling them. Like you said, just to see, are they only putting themselves down? What are they remembering? What are they forgetting? Where's their, because that's going to tell me where their confidence is at, right? That's a start right there. If they're only talking about the negatives, I'm like, that's not always true. There's always something you did right. We do want to reinforce something. With the notes we're taking, then when I see a pattern in their notes, for example, like in my journal, one of the things I have is, scale 1 to 10, how good are you doing with your routines in between points? So if they're writing 6s and 7s and 5s and 8s, and they never get to a 10 within 10 matches, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, you see yourself writing this, like, why are we not changing? So it helps me get to the point a lot faster, right? Be like, hey, we got to work on this. Because that's also where I look at stuff with notes. It's not just one match, but over patterns, right? What's going on over multiple matches. And then I get to see, I like to ask specific questions. For example, did you have to make a strategy change? When did you make that strategy change? If they never made one strategy change and they lost a match, I can go back to them like, hey, you just lost a match in straight sets. You never tried anything different. And then that gets the conversation going, like, well, why? Or did you see this? Did you see that? And then we take it from there. I mean, that's just 3 ways right there that I just take it. And the more they write down, the more that I get to ask questions as well.
I mean,
you have to take time. You can't just check a box with this. If you just check the box, write a couple notes, you're not going to get as much out of it. You got to give yourself at least 15 minutes. Maybe you're done in 5. Maybe you're that clear. That's fine. But you can't be doing it just to check a box and move on with your day.
Right. And it seems to me that, I mean, JY, you're the type of coach that is having these post-match conversations with your players on a regular basis anyway. But what you both are telling me and what I'm hearing from you both is that unless the player actually records what happened within a few minutes of walking off the court, the accuracy decreases in direct proportion to A, how long they wait to record it, and B, how detailed they are in their recordings. And so the more detail and the more accuracy there is in this journal from the coach's side, you have so much more material to work with as you're helping this player develop. Am I hitting the nail on the head here, or am I off base?
I think you're right on base. And it's funny, to JY's point, you actually also, when you're playing a match, after you're writing these things down and taking notes on your matches and your opponents and things like that, you start becoming more aware while you're playing. Yesterday, I was playing this just moonballer pusher guy, frustrating the heck out of me. But I started realizing, okay, Mike, what you're doing isn't working. You need to change your tactic here and do something a little bit different. And so I started doing something. Then he figured out what I was doing. And so I was actually a lot more aware of the other person on the other side of the court than my game and what I was trying to do. So, and
it's amazing
because I'm making myself aware. Yeah.
It's amazing how much the act of journaling is not just to help you write then and there. It's a longer term process. And it's amazing how once you write some stuff down, how you'll get to other matches and your brain will just start to reflect, because you're thinking deep down, you're trying to figure stuff out. But every second that you've taken in your day to try to be more aware of your own strategy, your own skills, your strengths, your weaknesses, what happened, the more you do it, the more information you have in your mind in the middle of the match to go back to. Because maybe you had a similar opponent and you just remember, oh, wait, yeah, at that time I wanted to do that and I didn't, so now I should try that. Because I've had kids where I do match reviews with, and I always start with, hey, tell me what you think of the match first. I don't want to influence their thoughts. I really want to see what they remember. And they'll be like, yeah, I just, you can see they forgot most of what happened in the match. As they start watching, it kind of starts to come back, but not a lot of people are rewatching their own matches. So if they didn't write it down right away, they've forgotten 90% of the stuff that happened, when it happened, how it happened, and maybe other things they could have done. So yeah, you have to go to it, because then you have to go to it right away, and it'll help you so much later in matches.
Where does journaling fit in to match analytics? Because JY, I know you're a big proponent of videotaping matches and then looking at the statistics from the match and using that to help the player grow. But now we've added this other piece that where recording the match and doing stats is kind of a passive activity on the part of the player. Journaling is an active activity. That's redundant. Active activity on the part of the player. So how do we use all these tools that we now have, with finally tennis catching up on the technology front, to kind of integrate it all without overloading the player with too much information so that they just, their brain explodes out there?
So I'll sum up how I put this all together, and then also a little bit of how I think parents should be using Mike's app. I talked to Mike about this, and I'm like, parents, this is actually an incredible app for parents. So, for example, with the reviewing the matches and the stats, I had a player today reviewed a match this morning, and I noticed they made 0%, 0 serves down the tee on the outside, literally 0. So, right, I go and I watch get more specific. I guess I need another copy. 0 serves on the ad side down the tee. They made 0. So I watch the video. I look at all their serves on the ad side. They didn't even try one. They didn't even try, right? So then that started the conversation. Well, why not? So they came up with this. And now I can go to their next match. One of their goals for the match can be aim 3 serves down the tee on the ad side in this match, right? Because that's the thing too, is then when you go to a match, my big thing is the pre-match. Okay, what are you thinking going into a match? Mm-hmm. So that's where, okay, there's 55 different things. There are a million things a player can have great intentions of working on, but 99% of them are not going to help you, or you're going to think too much. So that's where within all the coaching they've gotten that week, or from match to match or post-match, that's where within that journal, you write that stuff down. Hey, just 2-3 things. I have 3. If you have 2, I can live with it as long as you have good reason. And it organizes the mind so that we know what we need to focus on. And then after the match, we can directly ask questions versus what we felt was the most important things, right? Mm-hmm. So now with Mike's app, what I think is great for parents, okay? Parents, the hardest thing for parents is just sitting still and being calm, right? So Mike's app, I think, is fantastic.
Really?
Yeah. So for parents, they can have this app. I think it's a great app for parents as well, to be writing down notes as to what's going on in the middle of the match. So so they can also see good things their child is doing. Again, a lot of times parents, they forget like some of the good things they did, but so they are writing some notes down. One, it keeps them busy. So it keeps them calm or calmer, right? You're not going to be totally calm, but it keeps them busy. But then also I think it creates an interesting conversation. If the coach couldn't watch, as much as I'm totally against that, now imagine you have somebody that was watching from the sideline, writing notes down as they were happening instead of having to remember in the past. Now the coach can have a conversation with the parent. What did they see? They can have a conversation with the player. What did they see? And you can start to piece it together a little bit better, right? So I think there's a lot of wins on that side to keep the parents more still, more calm, but also provide some use to the coach as well. But they have to be writing down throughout the whole match. If they wait for the end of the match, then I don't think it's as useful for the parent.
Right. Well, and let me add to that. And you guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but even if the parents are using match recall throughout the match, this is not permission to then use what you've written and immediately have a conversation with your child when they come off the court about what they did well and what they did wrong. It's not a tool for that. It's a tool to have a conversation with the coach, not with the junior player.
Yeah, because what if what they're seeing is wrong, right? We don't know it's 100% factual. If it was 100% factual, I want to hire them as a coach, because that means they should be a coach. So yeah, we're not doing this so you can help coach your child. It's so you can compare notes with the child's coach. So I know there's a few parents there that are also coaches out there, then this is a great tool for you, right?
Yeah.
I think you'd also want to compare notes with what the player thinks himself, the junior. How does he think he did compared to what his parent saw him do, and then talk to the coach about that, because then maybe you get him thinking a little bit differently.
I wonder.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I wonder, I'd like to have a conversation with, maybe a psychologist about this, or the coaches in general. But I wonder if a parent has the ability and the strength to withhold stuff, right? And just be calm in conversations and actually just bring it to the child and be like, hey, this is what I wrote down. The child can say what they want, but the parent then has to just don't follow up with your own opinion and tell them they were wrong. Just let them think about it. That's it. And then they can have the conversation with the coach. I wonder if there's a good use there as well. So they can provide some feedback without providing too much coaching there, right? You just share the notes and let the child think.
I'm thinking and I'm not a psychologist by any stretch, but the older the junior player is, the more useful that might be, because they would maybe be mature enough to be able to look at it and take it for what it is. Whereas a younger child, I just speaking from experience, might think, well, mom, dad, you're not out there playing the match. You don't know what you're talking about, but by the time your kid's 15 and you've been sitting at matches for 7, 8, 9 years, hopefully they appreciate the value of your input by that age. Maybe not.
Yeah. There's a good coaching education with these parents that are using the app. Like, hey, if you're going to use the app, these are some things you should write down.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, y'all know I am such a big proponent of keeping the lines of communication open between the parent and the player, the parent and the coach and the player, right? And I feel like what the two of you are offering to us in terms of a tool is really going to help facilitate keeping those lines of communication open, because now it's not, well, I think, or I at this point in the match, my memory is that this thing happened. No, you've recorded it in real time. It may still not be accurate, but at least it's a real-time record of what you were seeing and thinking in the moment, rather than you going back and having to conjure up what you think you may have seen.
Well, I was going to say too, for the player, it could be, he could just make some notes in there. They're all initial notes that are right off the top of his head, especially if he's playing multiple matches in a day. Then he could take the app, go back when he goes home, takes JY's journal, and now he can fill in and have all that, a little bit more cohesive, as far as note taking goes, and be able to answer those questions instead of trying to draw upon what happened a few hours earlier.
Well, and I think that's one of the challenges, especially during tournaments, because we know until they get to the ITF level, kids are typically playing multiple matches a day. Well, even at the ITF level, if they're playing singles and doubles, they're playing multiple matches a day. So becoming disciplined about recording your matches is also a key component of this. And it starts young, right? If we can start an 8-year-old as soon as they're starting to compete, to start thinking analytically about their play, that's a skill that can be built upon and can grow and develop as the child grows and develops and matures. And the coach can help with that. The parent can help with that. And JY, to your point of these types of skills spilling over into other areas of your life is tremendous to me, because again, we always talk about tennis as a microcosm of life in general. And here's another prime example of that.
Yeah, that's why we're building this, right? How many tools can we give people so that they can be more successful within what they do, right? Now, tennis is what we're doing, but you can do this in other areas as well. Journaling helps everywhere. Being able to write your thoughts down, even after a meeting at work, right? That's where, just if you can go into your app, a lot of times we're talking about with adults, right? When I first looked at this app and I called Mike, I'm like, what's so great is because I used to work with adults, and now that I'm an adult and a parent and have a job and everything, I totally understand, like, we're limited on time. So sitting down and journaling, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer, but maybe you just want to take a couple notes, right, about something specific and where do you find it. As much as I love the Apple Notes app, the amount of times I wrote something down and I'm like, wait, where did I put it? Now I have to scroll, or wait, what was the title of it? And I have to search. That's why I love the ability to filter through Mike's app, right? You can it's so much easier to filter through matches. You can filter through meetings. You can do all this stuff. So this stuff goes across everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've built 2 companies. I've been in logistics and supply chain for 45 years, and I've used journals just, to relieve stress and writing it down. And they say, writing your goals down in, handwritten goals are going to be much more relevant than just thinking about them, or, even probably having them digitally somewhere. So, the benefit that people get by starting a journaling habit early on in life, it's going to just prove, immensely powerful for them.
So can you guys, First of all, Mike, I want you to kind of tell us the specifics of Match Recall. What type of information? I've seen the app and JY's seen the app, but our audience probably hasn't seen the app yet. So maybe walk us through how it works. And then JY, I want to talk about the types of things that are included in your journal and what the questions you're asking, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, well, yeah, basically the app is very simple. I wanted it to be very simple and easy to use for people. There's 3 sections. You have a player section where you enter your players in that you play against, and it has a note section for that player, so you can make notes about the player and his style of play, whether he's a right-hander, left-hander, two-handed, one-handed backhand, what his game attributes are, like a aggressive baseliner and, huge forehand or a moonballer, whatever he is. So you can keep those kind of notes. Then you have the second section, which are your matches. So you're entering your match information, and it's highly customizable so that you can keep all the information about the match, not, specific stats, but just, your win-loss, who you play, what kind of court you played on, was it grass, was it hard court, was it clay? The scoring formats, the division types, for juniors, like, was it a 16 and under, an 18 under match? And then you have a section for notes, for the match notes, so you can have notes about the match. Then you have a section for player notes in that match, so they're specific to that match. And you can actually recall all that on the player section. So when you look up a player, it'll show you what matches you've played, and you can just highlight in there. There's also a field for capturing a URL link. So if you're using Swing Vision or any other type of recording, you could put a URL in there. And so when you bring up that match, you can actually just go and watch, whatever recording you have on that match, highlights, whatever. And then the last is a stats section where, just kind of fun to keep stats on, the sets you've played, matches you've played, one loss, games you've played, one loss, and you can filter it in all different types of, not only types of leagues, practice matches, or tournament matches that you've played, but also even on the players, so you can get stats on that.
Love it. JY, talk us through your hard copy journal now.
So, a couple different components of my journal. The biggest one is going to be your pre and post match page. So, little details like, what is the weather like? Who is your opponent? What are your 3 goals for the match? What are your 2 or 3 strategies? Because I think that's important for people. There's goals, but then there's your strategies. Do you know your plan A or plan B? Then the post match page where you reflect on what happened. How did you do with, the 3 goals? How did you do with your strategy? Did you have to change strategy? How long the match was? We're talking about nutrition on both pages. What did you eat before the match and also during the match? If you played a 3.5-hour match and you didn't really eat anything throughout the match, that's something to note. Hey, you probably should have. How you're doing in your routines in between points. What do you rate yourself? My favorite little section, it's a sneaky one, is to get people thinking about, if their coach watched their match, there's a section for their coach. Most kids are not going to have this filled out, unfortunately. So then when you have too many matches where your coach is not filling out that section, that's already something you can improve on right there, getting them to watch the matches. So, the pre and post match pages to have a clear mind as to what you should be thinking about during the match. And then the post match page, I think, is really the big one, is the de-stressor, that Mike mentioned. Just that, again, when we win, everything's great. Everything's amazing, but okay, we need to have good discipline habits for when we lose so we can bounce back quicker. So that's where I think writing this journal down, especially after losses, so you can just de-stress a little bit, even if it's not totally correct, just to get some of that stuff out of you, I think it's just very important. And then I think what separates my journal is going to be the coaching tips that are in the book, right? I wanted to put in some tips for players where, they are going to be running across different types of opponents that they've never run into. Again, this journal is targeted mostly towards junior players, but even if there's adult players that maybe haven't played tournaments or they're playing singles for the first time. One of my favorite players that I worked with when I was at the club, he didn't play singles until he was like 60, right? Everything was doubles until 60. So he had to learn the whole singles game. So for players like that, if you're new in the singles, I think this could really help you. So there's just a bunch of different tips to where I think this journal is an assistant coaching tool where in the middle of a match, things can get really emotional, right? So what can help you recenter your mind? Because once you hit that emotional breaking point, it's very hard to think. And that's where you can open up your journal. What was I supposed to be working on in the middle of this match? I forgot everything. What's my plan B? I don't even know. I hate myself. I hate my life. What a terrible day. I don't want to play. All kids think this stuff, right? They think crazy things when they get really mad and they can't think. Open this book. This can try to recenter you like, okay, all right, this is what I'm supposed to be working on. Oh, well, I've never played this kind of opponent, or I don't know how to beat a counter puncher. Well, here's 5 different ways, you can try to beat them. So it can help you as a coaching tool because there's no coaching in juniors yet, right? So this is just one more thing that can help them. I do like the recommended reading page, just some books that I felt were really helpful for me as to, as you go on this high performance journey of trying to be a better athlete, a better competitor, some great books that can just help you along the way.
Love it. And we should point out that for junior tournaments, you can't have your phone on the court. So, but you can have a physical notebook or a pad or a piece of paper. So it is really helpful to have this physical hard copy journal, like JY saying, in the middle of the match when you're like, oh my gosh, I can't figure out what to do here. Oh yeah, let me flip through and find that thing that I wrote 3 months ago. I went through something similar and here's what worked. Oh yeah, now I know what to do and I get back out there. So there is value in having both types of tool, correct? Where you've got that immediate, you've got your phone, you just tap, 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 tap. You can, Mike, you didn't mention, but I'm going to mention because I remember when you told me that you can voice record the notes for Mike's app. So, just as you voice record a text, you can do the same thing with Match Recall, which is really nice. So it's not that the kids have to sit there and type at the end. They can actually dictate their notes into the app. And is that what you thought I was going to say?
Yeah, exactly. It's talk to text. So
Yeah.
it'll type it out for you. You just say it. And for somebody like me, it's very easy because I just have one finger that I have to.
Yes, those of us that did not grow up with smart devices are a little slow on the uptick there. But so let's talk about what you guys, because I put you two in touch with one another after speaking with Mike. And I was like, there's got to be some sort of crossover, some sort of collaboration that can happen, because I think what both of you bring to the table is so valuable. Can you share with us maybe some of the things that y'all have discussed and what we might see moving forward in terms of note-taking and journaling for our tennis players?
Yeah, I mean, from my side, I think there's a great option for like a nice bundle package, the app for the parent and obviously for the player as well. But, the kid, because where I think about it is the pre-match stuff, right? So the journal for the kid, the app for the parent during the match. And I think we're crushing it on the junior tennis side of things. I think that'd be a great bundle for the adult side as well. I think that with the journal, when they finally have more time to sit down and think about it, I think there's use for both of them as well. So that's my dream where I was like, this could be a great combo for junior tennis families.
And I agree completely because I think my app is good for in the moment and right after a match, where JY's is more long term as far as journaling and getting into more granular mental side of the game, which I think we don't spend enough time on. We're always practicing our technique and things like that. So spending time actually writing things out and really thinking about it is where we can work together.
Well, and also where I love the voice to text thing. So because again, a lot of times these kids I still can't believe it, where sometimes they only have an hour in between matches and they somehow have to change clothes, eat, and re-warm up for the match, and they don't have a lot of time, but they have this like energy inside of them after finishing a match, where I think talking things through a voice to text, if you don't have the time to journal, just as you're talking voice to text, it's a de-stressor. Again, when you won, everything's great, but when you lost, right? How can you get some of these emotions out of you? And you don't have time to journal. And unfortunately, what I've seen with so many kids is they just take it out on their parent, and it's just like, the parents just like, where do you want to go eat? Wherever you want, I don't care, just leave me alone. It's like, well, if they create this good habit of using Mike's app as well, then they can use that voice to text. So many times I've had an idea in my head and I just go to the voice recorder app on the phone and I just record something for 5-10 minutes, and it just kind of gets that out of my head and I can move on with my day. So that's where I think this could be very beneficial for players that are especially short on time. Because I've had it with players, they don't send me the post-match page until like the end of the day because they have to get ready for another match. And I totally understand it. But I think the voice to text could be great as they're just going to pick up lunch and get all that out.
Yeah, well, I designed this because, when I'm done with a tournament or a league match, I get in my car and I could literally enter everything in within a couple of minutes while I'm warming the car up. And so I just wanted that ease and speed of use. So, yeah, exactly. It just takes very little time. So if they're done with the match before they start talking with their friends and, talking about other people playing and things like that at a tournament, they could enter that information in and go on, and it kind of just clears their mind so they don't have to think about it anymore.
And I think, look, we're in an era where, look, we just have a generation that's growing up a lot more with keyboards and typing. It just is what it is. And some kids, look, I didn't journal growing up. So I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, everyone else did it. Why isn't this kid doing it? No, we understand most kids are not doing this. And a lot of kids just might not like the practice of sitting down and writing, right? They're going to be way more comfortable using an app. It just is what it is. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think the biggest thing, as long as you're taking some time to sit down and reflect, you know what, they can take their journey with where they want. We don't want to force them to do things they don't want to do. Well, now there's different ways that can reach different kids trying to achieve the same goals.
Exactly.
So I want you guys both to tell us where your product is available, how people get it, and what the price point is on it. Mike, let's start with you and Match Recall.
Okay, well, we're looking to go live the 1st of November, and they can go to matchrecall.com. You could even sign up for a pre-launch offer. The pricing is going to be $6.99 a month or an annual of $69.99 a year. And of course, we're offering a 50% off right now on our pre-launch, so it's a good time to go there.
Love it. JY?
And my journal's on Amazon right now. So you just search Aubone tennis. No, I don't know, Aubone match tennis journal. That's going to pop up right there. It's also my website at aubonetennis.com, but it's just going to link you right back to Amazon. So there's just more details, some more inside look at some pages in my website that you can look at that you can't quite see on Amazon.
And we'll have links to both products in the show notes on parentingaces.com. So for those of you thinking about getting Match Recall, take advantage of this 50% off thing. It's a great deal. Less than a case of balls. So spend the money. And JY, what's the price point on the journal?
So it's $29.99 right now. You can get it I think it covers almost everywhere in the world right now. Thank you to Amazon for that. Academies can reach out to me. Some coaches have already reached out to me. So if they order in bulk, they can get some better pricing. And I'm going to reach out to you offline to get a special deal for your Parenting Aces members, Lisa, after this.
Love it. We always like having a discount.
I was going to say, and there's a 30-day free trial too. So
yeah, perfect. So there is no excuse right now for downloading Match Recall, for purchasing the Aubone Tennis Journal. Both products are amazing. I have a journal in hand. I have seen the Match Recall app in practice, and I want to encourage all of you to invest this very infinitesimally small amount of money in these tools to not only help your child, but also, as these gentlemen have explained, to help yourself while your kid is playing and you're in a stress situation sitting there watching. this is such a great opportunity to do something for your child's tennis development and for your own tennis parent development and sanity out there. So please, please, please take advantage of these two great tools that are going to work together. And eventually, right, you guys are talking about how you can collaborate further to really make these two tools inseparable. You'll need both. And like I said before, you can't use your phone on court during a tournament match, but you can open a physical book, a physical journal. So it's important for our players to have both tools at their fingertips, literally, to help them grow and learn as players. And for you coaches out there, I hope you now, after listening to Mike and JY, I hope you understand better the value in having your players journal and having the parents of your players use these tools during matches so that you as a coach can do your job better. And after all, I mean, this is why we're here, right? We're here to make this journey more pleasant, more enjoyable, more I don't even know, more successful, I guess, in the long term. And it applies not only to your child putting in the work and getting better, not only the coach putting in the work and getting better, but you as the parent putting in the work, investing in yourself and your parenting skills in order to do a better job as you guide your child through this process. So I really want to encourage you to make this very small investment in your own skills as well as those of your child and their coach.
So speaking of coaches, I want to make this one last note where it's really helped my coaching. I mean, obviously I made this for the players, but where it's really benefited my coaching is I have every player take a screenshot of their pre-match page and send it to me before their match. So now I know what they're thinking going into that match. And I might have spent an entire week with a player working on something, and I'm like, why is that not one of your top 3 goals? Or, you know, I'll say, like, again, there's so many things you can work on. I'll say, hey, scratch that out. I think this is more important. So now as a coach, I've helped them put themselves in a better mindset going into the match. And I think that's really helped me help them have clarity on how to play.
Love it. Love it. Guys, any last words of wisdom you want to share? Any information that we've left out?
No, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed this conversation.
JY?
No, I think thank you for having me on to talk about this. Great to talk to Mike about just another way that we can just try to help junior players and parents. That's what it's all about. And also, you know, even adult players as well. I think there's benefits to everybody that plays tennis. And you got to try it out. It's unbelievable how it's going to help. It's one of those things, you do it once, you're like, why am I doing this? But give it some time and you'll play that one match and you're like, oh, now I get it. It's not one of those things. It's not like a private lesson where you fix your forehand and that's it. It's set. It's yeah, it takes a little time, but you'll see it's worth it.
Love it. Well, Mike and JY, I want to thank both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to record with me today, to always be there as resources. Mike, you don't know me well enough yet, but you are now in my database. So I'm just going to apologize up front for all the questions I'm going to send your way. And we're going to keep the conversation going to help these junior families have a better experience out there. JY can attest to the fact that I'm really good at texting questions about how to handle this or that or the other thing. But I love connecting like-minded people. So I'm thrilled that the two of you are now in touch and working together toward helping our players and parents do a better job out there. To my audience, as always, thank you for tuning in and for listening, and we will catch you next time on Parenting Aces.